The judiciary has long been considered the last line of defense against anarchy. And with India heading towards lawlessness as a result of vast power being held in the hands of a few in the midst of a corrupt system, this defense is under fire as well. It has its champions, of course. One such person's activism to hold on to this last bastion of justice, coming up on Unraveling India. Continuing the elitist legacy of the British era, the Indian Supreme Court works only 193 days a year. And continuing British antipathy toward law and order in India, there are only 18 judges per million people compared to 102 in the US and 147 in China. As a result, over 30 million cases are pending in Indian courts. At the current rate, it will take more than 300 years to clear these cases. And to make matters worse, according to a former Supreme Court justice, at least 50% of the higher judiciary is corrupt. But there are honest judges and lawyers holding the system accountable. One of them is Prince Lenin. He is a lawyer based in Lucknow, the capital of India's largest state, Uttar Pradesh. He founded the nonprofit organization We the People to help the poor seek justice using public interest litigation. We talked to Prince to learn about his work and the state of justice in India today. Mr. Prince Lenin, welcome to Unraveling India.
Thank you.
So before diving into the actual interview, if you can explain the Indian justice system, what are different courts and how judges and justices are appointed to those courts.
If we talk about Indian judicial system is a vastly diversified system. It originates from grassroots level, from municipal courts, which is also known as magisterial courts, and later on, as your case proceeds and the provisions are there for appeals and further appellate courts, then it comes before the Sessions Court, which is called District Judge Court. Thereafter you reach to High Court, that is the state judiciary level, and at the national level you have your apex court, that is called the Supreme Court of India. If we talk about the Indian judicial system, is far more equipped with powers which are meant to protect the rights of the people at large. Precisely if any government action which is going on to curb the rights of the people, courts are always open, and it's always there to protect the interest of the people. Apart from your own individual disputes, civil disputes, criminal disputes, precisely the strongest part of this Indian judiciary is those public interest litigations where the court comes forward to protect the public at large, be it their rights pertaining to any, you can say, medical rights, educational rights, or any freedom which they are being well equipped with by virtue of the Constitution of India, which provides them some fundamental rights. So the court has a very precise and it has a very large role to play in the life of the people of India.
Now I would like to deep dive into your activism, especially the work you have been doing by filing various public interest litigations, whether it's related to women's and children's safety, government healthcare system, bureaucratic corruption, farmers' issue, or freedom of speech in India. So let's start with the public interest litigation you filed in 2017. It was filed on behalf of 12 school children who died in a road accident on account of the negligence of the school and district administrative authorities. So I want to provide some statistics for the audience here. In 2016, the latest year for which the data is available, there were more than 480,000 accidents in India, and more than 150 people were killed in those accidents.
Some of the accidents, of course, were due to the negligence of the drivers, but many were due to the bad roads, and the most important is absent or completely absent emergency ambulance and healthcare service in India. So, for example, in the US, the emergency service arrives within minutes, but in India, people bleed on the streets, for hours before any attention is given to them. So why did you think there was a negligence on part of the authorities uh, when these school children died, and were any action taken against the authorities, and were any steps taken to avoid such instances in the future?
Deepak, in the case which we are referring to is pertaining to the road accidents of school-going children. We have large number of cases wherein accidents keep on occurring. The data which you had mentioned pertains to the overall scenario of the road accidents within India, and a large form of such incidents also comprises of school going buses, school children carrying vans which collide with vehicles on account of negligence of the service providers. There had been repeated incidents for the last several years, and there have been standing orders of the Honorable Apex Court to the schools and the authorities concerned to look after, to comply the standards and provisions of the road safety norms, that the vehicle has to be in upright position, as in many cases it was found that the vehicle was suffering severely. It was lacking service conditions. It was not in any form of capacity to carry on passengers, and the children were being taken from one place to another, and it met with its fate and caused a huge amount of casualties, resulting in loss of valuable lives of innocent children. So the petition was filed, and the court has asked upon the state government that what steps it has taken to ensure the directions of the Honorable Apex Court, which have been laid in various cases wherein it has been observed, for example, that the subdivisional magistrate will look after the status of the vehicle, and he will cross check that the vehicles are being run in a proper form, because transport authorities are not performing their duties in a fair and proper manner. These things keep on emerging in various incidents, that the vehicle was carrying fitness certificate, but it's all paperwork. Ground reality of that vehicle is being zero, and on paper it's up to marks. So it results in such instances for which valuable lives are being lost upon. So this case is being looked after, such instances wherein these accidents have taken place, and the people who are accountable for those lives should be held guilty.
Yeah, so that's another big problem in India. The transportation department. If I remember correctly, the current minister of road transport and highways, Nitin Gadkari, once said that these transport officers behave like mafias. There is rampant and open corruption in all transport offices. The recently released data says that 60% of Indian drivers get their license without a road test. And I remember when I wanted to get a license for myself, I took a driving classes. I learned how to drive well, but when I went for a road test, the officer did not even bother to test me, because he gets a bribe, whether you know how to drive or not. So there is no incentive for him to really test my skills. And as you said, a vehicle can pass the inspection in India without without being inspected if you pay a bribe, or rather you have to pay a bribe whether your vehicle is in good condition or not. So it's really sad that those children lost their lives. Do you know if the families got any compensation from the government?
Deepak, definitely this is a case wherein corruption has a huge role to play, because the officers who are responsible to take care of these things have been failing to perform their duties as per the directions of law and the discipline which is being required upon themselves. So this on account of this corruption which is being prevalent within the Indian departments at a very vast level, right from bottom to the top. So these sort of incidents keep happening, and people, innocent people, keep losing their lives. And if we talk about compensation, some other government seldom, often they come up with some declaration of the compensation, but for the time, and it's well known to the people that many promises go in abeyance, and with the change of government or with some ministries, these things kept persisting. So the problem is here that there has been a huge failure on the part of the responsible persons to look up to their duties and perform their duties so that they can protect the rights and the lives of the innocent people at large.
I came across a very interesting research done by an Indian professor from Harvard along with other professors. So they found out the rampant corruption in the allocation of driving licenses both in India and Mexico. And Mexico did very interesting out of the box thing. It abolished the license allocation process completely, because anyway the licenses were not given without a bribe. So why allow these officers, corrupt officers, to make money? I think India needs to deregulate in order to reduce the corruption.
No, but in that case, the government must have entrusted upon the people that they will perform their duties. If there has been a failure on the part of authorities, then the citizen will perform their duties, that they will adhere to the honesty, that they will drive the vehicle after obtaining due training and if performing their duties towards other citizens. So that's why that government must have taken this decision. But here in India, people are hardly bothered about others individuals' rights. This is a major question, major reason also, because they are bothered about themselves only. People have stopped thinking about bothering about others individuals' right. When a person suffers any loss or injury, then they will call upon, look, nobody comes to help, nobody stands up for the cause. You put them the question that how, for how many people you have stood up? Haven't you encountered any such incident in your entire life? Then the answers will be on a very sad side, because here there are very less people who stand up for the causes. Because now you can see in such instances also, there a new thing is being emerging, which is called road rage, because people will start fighting on the roads. If you'll try to protect any individual's right, then there will be muscles being flexed upon you. So people try to ignore all these things, and they try to avoid such circumstances. So they should not indulge themselves into such criminal activities. This is the one more reason for the people why they are avoiding to come forward to help such people who are in distress and who are in immediate need of medical help. So this is one of the concern also.
So let's talk about the horrible state of Indian government hospitals. I have some official numbers here. I'm sure the real numbers will be far worse than the official numbers. So these numbers are only for child deaths in only one government hospital, which is BRD government hospital in Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh. And we are not even talking about how many adults died in these hospitals. These numbers are only for the children. So in year 2014, 5,800 children died. In 2015, around 7,000, and in 2016, 6,000 children died just in one hospital in India. And these deaths are 10% of total admitted children. And no one has been held accountable for these deaths. A private hospital in Delhi was recently shut down for negligence, and when no one even died. So it's very clear that private institutions are made scapegoat to show to the public that politicians care about our well-being. So you have done some good work to hold these government hospitals accountable. You filed at least 3 public interest litigation. One was to ensure fire safety in government hospitals. Another was to ensure adequate ventilators, and the third one was to establish surveillance units for regular checkup in critical care areas in district government hospitals in Uttar Pradesh. So, what was the trigger behind filing the PILs, these public interest litigations?
Deepak, I'll narrate you how I got encouragement to file such petitions regarding health services. Once I was coming back home and I found a person lying in pool of blood by the roadside. With the help of my friend, we took him to the trauma center, which is the state-wise best available facility for the people within the state of UP, precisely in the city of Lucknow. What I noted over there was that was an eve of very auspicious festival, Holi. So there were many cases of road accidents, and the people were lying here and there, and you won't believe that the people were being carried upon by their relatives and friends in bed sheets. There were no stretchers or wheelchairs to carry the patient. If they were being taken for any x-ray or blood check, they were being wrapped in bed sheet, and the people were carrying them like dead bodies. I took photographs of those patients, and then very next day I filed a petition in the year 2011 seeking betterment of medical facilities within the state of UP. And the court had observed that this petition makes a very sad commentary upon the existing medical and health conditions within the state of UP. And upon that, entire state of UP was being directed to be looked after, and it was being called upon that government should provide each and every details of primary healthcare unit and hospitals district wise. But by the course of lapse of time and the change of the judge, these proceedings are being kept in abeyance, and they lose their very authority by the virtue of time. So these incidents keep on coming one after the other. You were talking about ventilators. Every other day the news was coming that any newly born baby lost his life because he was not in a position to breathe, and there was no ventilator, and same thing came up for several critical people. So I filed a petition before the honorable court, and court immediately issued directions that this is a very pro bono litigation. State should not wait for our orders in such cases. It should come up with such plans and such directions that these things are being taken upon and these things are being taken care of. So, and same thing happened when there was a fire incident of fire in a government hospital. And this was not the very first incident. This incident has taken place for continuously 3 years. In each successive year, this incident of fire took place, and the staff ran away from the hospital, leaving aside all those patients and the children who were admitted. So again, a petition was filed, and on that petition, the court ordered to form a committee who will look after the fire safety norms of the entire hospitals within the state of UP. So these things are being again and again placed before the court, and the critical care unit, the infections are being caused to the several patients. There was an eye operations performed, and due to infection, several people lost their life. Some have to lose their limb on account of post-operational infections. So again, it's the court where we approach and we pray for reliefs, and court come forward to direct the government to make necessary arrangements, and immediate and adequate measures should be taken. So these things are being going on and on for years and years, and still things are not in a very good state.
My family has experienced this sad state of the accident victims and the Indian healthcare system. My aunt had an accident. She was lying on a busy street for hours. Then she was taken to a private hospital which refused to admit her. Then she was transported to a government hospital, and where she died. There were so many such incidences, and there's so much corruption that you don't know where to get help from. I think the question to be asked is, do we really need these government departments? When I was in India, I could not get a single government work done without paying a bribe. And you can get almost anything and everything done if you pay a bribe. So why don't we just abolish these government department because instead of serving them, instead of serving people, they have become source of making illegitimate fortune for government officers. And if you ask politicians, bureaucrats, and judges, they will always tell you that we need more laws and more regulations, because they will never agree with us to getting rid of these departments, because they are the biggest beneficiaries. Why would they not want to have these institutions? When I was applying for education loan, the government managers asked me for 5 to 10% of the total loan as a bribe. And most of the government employees make more money than than the executives in the US. For example, for one signature, government officer asks in a small town ask for $150 to $200. And they make dozens of these signatures in a day. So just imagine how much money they make, and that's just a small government officer in a small town, and we are not even talking about the bureaucrats and judges that sit in larger cities. Public interest litigation I want to talk about is that of Rinku Singh Rahi. I interviewed him some time back, and I came to know about you from him. He was shot for doing his job honestly. He told me that without knowing him, you filed a public interest litigation to provide him the police protection.
Look, Deepak, one fine day in newspaper headlines, it was the case of Rinku Singh Rahi. He was sitting on protest in the capital of UP, that is Lucknow. And one of the prominent newspaper published his story on the front page. So I still remember that on that day I came to know that how a government officer, a whistleblower officer, was darely facing all these corrupt people within the government, within the state machinery, and he has suffered such a brutal attack on the part of his on his life. I can never forget such an officer who almost ended up his life raising his voice against corruption. He had exposed a scam to the tunes of several thousand crores of rupees. He was asked upon either to accept the bribe or just to keep his mouth shut. But being a whistleblower and being an honest officer, he kept on raising his voice, and ultimately he was being severely attacked and shot upon by on very close range, and he lost his eye and other vital parts. When this story was published, I searched for him on Google, and then I came to know about his what his life is and how he is fighting and raising his voice against corruption. Then I prepared a PIL and placed it before the court, seeking CBI investigation into his allegation and further to provide him protection. And on that PIL, the court ordered that the state will ensure that no harm is caused to Mr. Rinku Singh Rahi, and immediately he was being provided with police protection. Then later on the instructions of the court, the comments were being called upon that what are his allegations of corruption. Then it came up before the court that yes, 50 crores rupees has been manipulated, it has been misused by the authorities, and now arrests have been made. But it's an eyewash only, and the court on further hearings observed that the state was not coming up with clean hands, and they were trying to protect some people. So they again ordered for an inquiry, and the matter is still pending with the government, and then their inquiry has not concluded yet. So this is what happened to a person who raises his voice for the cause of the people, who raises his voice against corruption. He is being taken up to task. Nobody comes up for his help. It's very unfortunate that here in India, if you are raising your voice against corruption, then you will have to take a toll on your life. You every moment your life is in grave threat. These things keep on happening around me also. I also came across so many conspiracies wherein I was told that I was about to be murdered, and there were shooters being called upon, but at the last moment this plan could not be given effect to due to some or the other reason. So I'm happy and I'm thankful to God that he's there to look after me and people like Rinku Singh Rahi, who risk their life for the cause of the people. So the corruption within this country is a very severe problem, and it's not going to eradicate so easily, though there have been efforts being put up by someone or the other in the government to eradicate corruption, to give this people a corruption free government and all. But these things are only right now only a matter of talks and talks and talks, and nothing is coming on the ground. Ground reality of this nation and its people is very pathetic.
To give some information for the audience, the scam was more than $10 million in just one department in one district in India. There are more than 700 districts in India. According to a famous comment made by the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, only 15 cents of every dollar spent by the government reaches to the intended recipient. And now I came to believe that the government officers and politicians are the intended recipients and not the common citizens. So you can imagine the amount of corrupt money being generated in India. Most of the money goes towards buying land, apartments, and gold, and billions of dollars are laundered out of the country in tax havens. As a result of this corruption, the land prices go up and everything becomes more expensive as a result. So this was the first of two parts with Mr. Prince Lenin. Thank you for watching Unraveling India. See you next time.